There once was a place enchanting your darkest desires. There once was a road that crossed all your tranquility. A fight for true love, a fall for timeless lust, secrets of the labyrinth, destroyed bonds at the glance in a mirror. Hearts closed, thorns in prison, a spirit hardened. Rise up, warrior, confess your truth. Join us inside Black Garden. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Crib Dominion podcast with your host, Darklaw, and welcome to episode 20 of the Black Garden series, debuting September 2024. And I am very excited for this episode because just to give everyone a little synopsis that is listening and viewing here today, I actually set a goal for this first season to reach 20 episodes, and at the time, it was a far stretch goal. And so very excited to announce that we have reached the 20th episode of the first season of Black Garden. And we have a very exciting, special guest for you all this afternoon. We have Mr. Derrick Jones, a well-known relationship coach. How are you doing, Derrick?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Why don't you tell me, the audience, a little bit about yourself and as well as where you reside?
Well, I reside in what they call the DMV. So I'm in Maryland, right outside of DC. My profession is I'm an engineer, a software engineer for NASA, but my purpose work is relationship coaching. This is kind of where I was led. I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to do it, and it takes a certain temperament and a lot of patience to be able to do this. And it's because it's purpose work for me. It does have its moments where, you give so much to people that you have to kind of get yourself back, but I'm built for it. So I know how to reset myself in this coaching journey. It really just came about because, we all, such as the story of a lot of coaches and probably therapists, where we go through a lot of trials and tribulations in our lives, and then we come out on the other side of it, and then we see similar things in other people, and then we see where we can kind of help. So once I started doing that unofficially, and I realized that I was kind of good at it, the results came back positively. I was helping people stay in relationships. I was helping people date better. And then you kind of get into your career and your schedule. And then something just kept saying, you got to go back and keep doing it. Just kept tapping me on the shoulder like, oh, hey, you enjoy doing that. And so I was like, let me see how I can reach more people. So I went and got certified, studied, and just kind of, merged that into my personal experience and created a brand, which is called Relationship Gumbo. And in today's version of it, because it's evolved over time, I'm more of a healing journey coach more than I am a relationship coach these days, because that's the foundation of where I think most of us should start before we even venture outside to go date. And so I focus really heavily on healing first before you go out. And I've been kind of riding that for a while. So the gumbo part of it, we know it's a food, but it's a play on words. And so I tell people there are 3 core ingredients to your relationship gumbo, which is healing, growing, and evolving. So the healing part, of course, is your healing journey, getting to know who you are. The growing part is implementing the things that you learned. And then the evolution is you becoming a better version of yourself. And sometimes it's a cycle that you have to go through several times along your life as you have new experiences and you gain new knowledge, that you evolve even more. So I'm all about creating a new version of you, but we got to start from the foundation. So I hope that makes sense.
Awesome. And so I don't know about you all, but I was getting a little hungry when he said gumbo. I was like, we going to Nolan's. And so excellent. So I love everything you said there. Again, you guys are in for a very special treat inside Black Garden. And before we go inside, I always say everything that's said today may not resonate with you. And this episode is for all parties involved, whether you're in a relationship, whether you just went through a divorce, whether you're widowed, whether you're still searching for that significant other. Everyone's human and everyone is on a journey to healing and becoming the best version of themselves. And so I encourage everyone listening and viewing here today to take one thing, at least one thing, that you can apply daily as soon as you hear it, to again become the best version of yourself and to decree the dominion of your own mind. And so, as I always say, we're about to dive inside the Black Garden. So don't let the thorns prick you too hard inside. So go ahead and grab your band-aids, your peroxide, and your ice packs for any cuts, bruises, or nicks that you may receive during the journey inside. And welcome inside Black Garden. So, first question I'll ask: what is the most common misconception that you see when you start working with newer clients when it comes to the healing and the dating journey?
Dealing with clients, the biggest misconception is that the fix will happen overnight or like in a very short amount of time. Um, and most people don't realize that in order for you to get better results, you have to change habits, and any habit doesn't change in a week. So they want really fast results, or they want to dump all of their troubles on you to have an ear, and then they think once they dump it on you, then that means that they're absolved of everything and they know what to do next. And it's really about, whether it's therapy or coaching, it's about gaining new tools, right? So if you come in thinking that you're going to get the tools in one day or 1 week, then you're not ready to be coached. And there's some people that I have to turn away because they're just not ready. Like they have an assumption that if they talk to me one time that they're fixed, like that they know what to do. And a lot of times people come in and they'll tell you what's wrong. I already know I have daddy issues. I already know I did. So can you just tell me how to find better people? And I'm like, we can't just skate past all that stuff you do that's listed, that you know where your issues. If we don't tackle those, even if I send you outside and tell you where to go, it's still the same you. So that's the biggest thing, is that the assumption that let's say they're 40 years old, 40 years of things that you've been through should be fixed in a week or two. And it just doesn't work that way.
I love that you said that because it reminds me of the saying that I heard just recently. When the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Right.
And I love that you said that because a lot of, just living in a microwave type society that we are in today's world, I mean, especially when it comes to healing and dating, is like you said, you want 40 years of trauma, 40 years of pain, 40 years of, trials and tribulations to be fixed in 7 days. And it's just,
Yeah.
and we also have to equate it to, I like to equate it to having kids. I'm a single father of twin boys, and healing is just like resetting. It's like the evolution of childbirth, right? Your newborn baby doesn't know how to walk, go to school,
Right.
brush his teeth in 7 days, right? It takes a full, several years to um get, learn those behaviors and those habits. And so same thing with the grown adult. If you're 40 years old, well, you've spent the past 40 years of, surviving for most people, or, living with afflictions and trials and tribulations and trauma. And you're going to have to may not take you 40 more years to figure it out, but it's going to take, applicable steps. And so I do want to speak on, I know you said there's 3 stages, so I want to speak on the healing part of stage, because it just reminds me of just a saying I heard from one of my favorite pastors, Pastor Eric Thomas, where it says, focus on the assignment. And so I want to speak on your opinion on how do you take the applicable steps towards healing. And I want to talk about that first step of actually acknowledging that you need.
Right. So what I have learned to do, because I am an engineer by trade, and so I tend to be a little technical. And what I learned is that a lot of that technical jargon tends to go over a lot of people's heads. So I try to speak in a way that most people can get it, because I'm very conscious of how people learn. Some people are more visual learners and blah, 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 and all of those kind of things. So the way that I like to explain it is it's a series of patterns throughout your life that you may not realize are patterns. But the one thing that you can know for sure, even if you don't know the patterns, is you know the results, right? You know the pain that you felt. You know that you might have stayed too long here. You know that you got hurt when you broke up with this person. Those things are not going to be foreign to you. So I start there, right? So what I tend to do to help people learn where to start is to not look at your relationship pain. Don't look at what you went through with the person. I start with who you were before you met them, right? So your state of being before you met them is going to inform why you chose them. And that state of being is also going to be the part of you that's going to stay too long. That's going to be the part of you that may have something that you're bringing into the relationship that has nothing to do with the partner, which creates an environment for some of those things to happen. And maybe you do something that triggers the other person to do something to hurt you. But if I don't know who you were before, then I won't be able to kind of parse out the mess in the middle. So if we look at the person you were before the last relationship, if we look at the person who you were before the relationship before that, and the relationship before that, we'll start to see a pattern of why you chose these people. And normally it comes from a singular origin story, which normally goes back to when you were a kid. For most people, they just don't realize that it comes from that place, because you're picking with the traumatized version of yourself that you don't see. So you don't even realize that it's a pattern. But I can see it. Like, you give me 10 minutes with anybody, I can tell you what the pattern is. That's how my brain, because I've seen a lot, and I can kind of cross-reference it. But most of us have a pattern. If we have a horror story worth of stuff, there's a reason why you picked. We can demonize the behavior of the person that hurt us, but we also got to look at the fact that when you knew you were hurt, there was something in you that couldn't leave. So now we got to look at what part of you where that pain wasn't enough. What made you keep going? And a lot of times it could be low self-esteem. It could be, maybe you have an abandonment wound and you don't want somebody to leave you. There's always something that makes you stay even when you know in your body and soul that you should not be there. That's where the healing starts. So I take people on the journey backwards, and then we move forward and say, okay, where was your self-esteem level before you picked this guy or this girl? What state of mind were you in? Where were both of your parents in the home? Cool. If they were in the home, were they emotionally available to you? Right? Because what I do is I'm not a therapist. And so we look at two different levels of trauma: big T trauma, little T trauma. And big T is like physical abuse, these egregious things that we hear that we typically would call trauma. And then the little T trauma is, I didn't get enough hugs, right? The little T trauma is where I live, because I can't fathom helping somebody who's been through anything like that, this most egregious stuff. They're going to need somebody to really parse through that. But like for me, my childhood trauma was having two emotionally unavailable parents. So when I went out to date, I was hungry for that. I didn't look at whether they was qualified to be with me. I just wanted somebody to make me feel like they loved me, and we'll shoehorn the rest of it in later. And that was my fatal flaw, because I would always pick from that instead of saying, do me and this person even get along? I just wanted to feel like somebody was there. And so a big part of my life, that's the only way I picked, because that feeling like that was more important than anything else. But I didn't realize that it came from when I was a kid. Most of us don't. That's the subconscious part of you that's running in the background. That's really the person that's picking. It's a little kid picking what's going to make them feel safe. And the adult version of you is like, why do I keep attracted? Why do I keep getting in these situations? You'll never know until you sit down and heal. And that's why a big part of my platform I call Sit Down and Heal. My show, I have a live show that's called Sit Down and Heal, because we really need to stop and assess. And so I try to fill in the gap with that, because where would we get this information from? My parents didn't teach us how to heal. So I try to step in and help people so that they don't continue the cycle.
I love that you said it, because it reminds me of an excerpt from a song that I always say is, thousands of years, and what have we learned? Again, thousands of years, and what have we learned? And the reason I say that in correlation with what you're speaking about is, do you really ever grow up, or do you just get older, right? Again, do we really grow up, or do you just get older? Because I love with the whole childhood trauma, because what it does is everything that you lacked in your childhood, you just turned 18 and you moved out the house. You didn't necessarily, the age is what society puts on as you're determined as grown or as an adult once you're 18, 21 years of age. But mentally, emotionally, psychologically, until until you heal and begin to address those traumas, you're actually mentally still trapped in that cage of when you were a little boy. And
Yeah.
so what we have to do again is go through that. That's why I love talking about the darkness of your childhood trauma, your past, to reveal the true authentic self inside you. I just want to encourage the viewers and listeners and the audience that everything ends and begins within you. And so I love that you said that, with emotional detachment, you seek what is in your mindset. I always say you seek what you speak, and you seek what's in your mindset. And so, from my personal experience, I've just always had that I gotta save you hero type
Mhm.
spirit. And that's because of, again, if you guys haven't listened to my first ever episode, the childhood trauma series, again, me and my mother are domestic violence survivors, at age 14 for myself. And the reason why, for me myself, dating a lot of women that quote unquote need saving, is because of that childhood trauma of saving my mom from my father. And so that goes right into what you're saying of, hey, that's a part of me that I have had to work on and still continue to work on to heal, because if not, you're gonna always try to for me
Yeah.
anyway, save the damsel in distress.
Yeah, and when you do that, there's almost no reciprocity on the back end of that for you. Like, you're always gonna be the one doing most of the work, and that person is always gonna be dependent on you fixing things and saving them all the time, and then you'll look back months later, years later, and you'll be like, "Wait, I'm not happy." That's normally the way it happens, because whatever you need, it's, like, last on the list. That's how that normally works.
Exactly. I love that you said that. And then, and like you said, yep. Then we get burnt out, and we're like, why did I date this person, or why am I not fulfilled, or why am I not happy? It's because you did. It's because we don't go into a relationship seeking happiness. We seeking the acknowledgement to save.
Yep.
And so you get what you ask for. And so and it doesn't have to be, those are just our personal experiences simultaneously, but it could be anything. It could be, financially. Maybe you grew up with a lot of money, and your parents always covered everything up with, oh, we'll just buy you this or buy you that, and you may have lacked that emotional awareness within childhood. So then when you grow older, what are you going to do when you date? You're going to, I got money, or I got a career, so I'm just going to put money on it and fix it. And then you wonder why you're not happy. It's because,
Yeah,
again, going back to your childhood, your
yeah.
parents just threw money at everything. So now you throw money at everything.
Yeah, it never leaves and it never stops until you gain control over it, and that's what this healing journey is about, is once you become self-aware, once you know who you are and why you do the things you do, you almost a person who's diligent about being better, you almost can't unsee it now. So, like, when the things start to bubble up, you're like, "Wait, that's this now. Like, let me." So it's not about, a lot of people think the healing journey is about deleting trauma. It's about, once I get to a healed ED, then I'm done. But it's an ever going thing that you're going to have to do for the rest of your life, because you're always going to be triggered by something. You're always going to run into things that remind you of things. So it's really about managing yourself better and having tools to do that. And like I said, most of us don't know how or know where to get these tools, and so all we know is what we know. So we keep going through the whole cycle of things over and over again and having the same results, and then next thing you know, you're 60 and 70 talking about the same stuff, and it's like, and when I saw that, when I was becoming a coach, I was like, wait, like, it's almost like when you when you become a more healed version of yourself, you see the world differently. And so you be looking at people like, no, wait, stop. No, no, wait, the car's coming over here. Don't go in the street. And they're like, no, but I like it here. And I'm like, no, wait, you're going to get hit. And they're like, just let me do it one more time. And I'm like, no, no, no. So when I became a coach, it was really about making people have that awareness so that when they see things, they're going to, the stuff that hurts, you're going to be like, wait, I healed and I got to a place of peace. I'm not going to let anybody mess that up. I see you coming. I see you. And now the trajectory of where they would have gone changes and goes into a more positive direction because they're not sitting in places they don't belong anymore. And that's the win. So I try to get people to that point to where they can get to that point and they don't need me anymore. So I let the little birdie wings fly. And if you need me in the future, I'm here. But the goal is not for you to use me as a crutch.
Amen, amen. I love the way you said that because I just feel like a lot of the times a lot of society just lacks that awareness
Mhm.
of, and I love what you said earlier is focus on the result, not just the pain. And that leads me to my next challenge for the audience. I encourage you to just look in the mirror real quick as you're listening. And I want everybody listening and viewing to imagine themselves about to run. I always say this, imagine yourself about to, get hit by a train. You're on a subway and a train's coming. Are you just going to stand there? Or are you going to, get to the platform and move away? And that's the same thing with our trauma and our dating. A lot of times we don't even know the train's coming and we're just left to stand there and get hit. And what we have to do is that's your healing journey. And so by not acknowledging that you need healed and just whether you're throwing money away at it or what are you just I like to call it flight or fear, right? As soon as, and I love what you said about it's still coming up because life's an infinite game, right? We're finite players, but life's an infinite game. So you might be, if you think, oh, I'm healed, I don't have to deal with that. No, you might be at a grocery store one day and a song comes on or, a little kid runs in front of your car too fast or something happens and it might take you right back to when you were a child. And if you're not, again, like you said, equipped with those tools to deal with that, it's just like any trauma. When we have, family members that have gone on to glory, you might hear a song. For me, it's my granddad. They played Tamala Man, Take Me to the King at his funeral. So for me, whenever I hear that song, it just reminds me of, my grandfather. And so same thing with, your healing trauma. You might see something that's going to remind, oh, wow, I remember when I was an 8-year-old kid and, that's what happened. And so if you're not actively, and awareness, I love the word awareness because I feel like it's not talked about enough. I think people have a false assumption of once you know, you're automatically aware. Knowledge is separate from awareness. You could be the smartest guy. You could be Albert Einstein or the smartest woman or man in the world. But if you're not applicable in your knowledge, then you're just still getting hit.
Right. There's a lot of people out here that will listen to this. They'll listen to me. They'll YouTube a lot of stuff. And they literally compare it, a lot of the same information. And they'll have all of the knowledge but never use it. And those are a lot of times the people that will come to me for coaching. They'll try to prove that they know all of this. I already know what this is. I already know what an attachment style is. I already know, but I'm still, sitting in this horrible relationship and I'm horribly, meeting all of these bad people when I date. And the last 10 people I met, I just stayed too long. And I was like, so all of that information didn't do anything for you because you never implement. You know what to do. A lot of them, they know what to do. They need confirmation that they need to move in a direction, yes or no, because they're looking for a guarantee of success when there's no such thing. Sometimes you're going to have to take that knowledge, go outside, and maybe you stumble, but at least you have a foundation of information to keep going back to. So that's what I always tell people. When you on this healing journey, it's not going to be pretty. Sometimes you're going to fall. The key is that now you have a toolbox to go back to go, put the information in, use the tools, come back out and try again. So the information is out here, but if you're not ready for it, you're just going to sit on it. And the not ready for it means that you're not aware. of who you are. All of these things that we tell you to do in relationship coaching, create healthy boundaries, have your standards and deal breakers. None of that matters if you're still sitting on a bunch of trauma, because that's going to be more powerful than that list you wrote in your journal every time. The reason why you pick people is going to be stronger than that. All of those boundaries go out the window for most people when they like somebody enough, and it's done.
I love that you say that because it just reminds me of, high school where, for me, it was like, I just never liked cigarettes. I never smoked one, never liked the smell. But, just going back to my younger days, I'd be dating a girl, we'd be on a date, she'd pull out a cigarette, and I'm thinking to myself, now, dang well, I don't like nothing about cigarettes. But like you said, well, she was fine, right? So
Right.
it's going to do it. We just going to have to, make it enough, right? Like I said,
Right.
try to make it enough. And I just think a lot of people in society, we're just making it enough until we run out of something to blame. And so
Yeah.
your whole life it becomes making it enough. And it goes right back to what I was speaking about earlier with survival. You never really grew and you never really matured mentally because, again, your whole life has been settling for, what's in front of you. And the crazy thing about it is what you say you want is actually not what you want. The trauma is what you want because that's what's coming to the forefront when you start
Yep.
dating.
Yep. This is why I always ask people when they come to coaching, what part of you was doing the picking when you picked that person? What version of you? Was it the person that has unresolved trauma? Because that's most of the time the answer. Like, who you pick and how you show up in a relationship will always tell your behavior will tell the story before your mouth will. You tell me what you did in a relationship, even if somebody hurt you, I'll be like, wait, but you stayed for an extra 3 years. When did you know that this was a problem? In month 2? So now I'm looking at you because that hurt wasn't enough. And normally the reason why it wasn't enough is because it was familiar to you. Maybe this thing that hurt you was maybe something you saw that this was how somebody showed love to your mom or your aunt or even you. And it's amazing how we seek out things or we become the things that that were modeled for us. We just don't we don't put it we don't connect the dots. Like I had a very agreeable kind of like a passive father. He didn't like conflict, so he was always yes dear, even if it was to his detriment. And I didn't realize until I was later on, maybe like in my 30s, where I looked at when I started on my healing journey, I was like, wait, I do that. I'm him. Cause I don't want any smoke. Tell me what I gotta do to make it go away, even if it doesn't serve anything for me. Let me, and I was like, wait, it took me a long time to connect it, but I was like, I'm him. I didn't even realize it. I was like, wait, I'm that guy. So I would pick women that were a little headstrong, but in relationship, I hated it because there was always going to be conflict and I would always pick these people. Guess who was headstrong in my household growing up? My mama.
Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. Mama knows.
So
Since
the cycles repeat itself, and sometimes we don't connect it because we think we grown and I've been in the world. But that little kid, if you don't identify what's going on with that inner child, that little kid is picking everybody that you ever dated in your life. You don't even realize it.
Right. I love that you said that too, because again, it all starts with, being in tune with yourself and, gaining those tools of that knowledge. And so again, that's until you start to learn and know yourself, until then can you truly heal. And so that's again how you start that healing journey
Mhm.
of learning that. And so I know you said the second thing, so like we're gonna break down the gumbo, right? We're gonna, we got the mirepoix, we got the celery, onions cooking, we got the
Right,
the
right.
brown roux. Um, and so on the growth side, that's the second one, the growth,
Mhm.
on growing, once you've identified that, hey, I'm on this healing journey and, I got my awareness going, my antennas are up. It's kind of like playing football, right? Like, oh, the blitz
Mhm.
is coming here. Oh, throw the ball here, check down. But we also have to maintain that, right? It's
Right.
again, it's not a finished race. It's an infinite game. And
Yeah.
so how have you helped people that are on that healing journey? How are you that guiding them through that growing phase?
So So the growing phase is also what I like to call implementation of the things that you learned. And so it's kind of like if in a relationship realm, it would be re-entering back into dating. Because a lot of times when people come to me and they tell me their story, I tell them you're not allowed to date until I release you back out in the world because you're not ready. They don't like to hear it because they're in that cycle of needing to be around people. And I'm like, you have to detox from it. But so what I have learned, because I'm like a consummate like analyzer of human behavior, it's almost like Rain Man. Like I pay attention to everything. This is what I have done with my platform to do what you're asking. So people, when they get the information and they learn the things and they go through making the assessment of themselves, they're on their healing journey. Maybe they date. Maybe they just kind of sit it out for a while and try to process the things that they've learned. Because the side effect of this healing journey is that it's not just going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect probably some things you deal with family. We're talking about boundaries and how to do healthy boundaries. That's not just about relationships, right? So what I have done, because I know that people do what I call backslide from what they're doing, and sometimes people will deter from the healing journey once they mess up once. So what I realized is that these people sometimes, even though they've gone through the coaching, they need a refresher. So what I did was with my engineer brain is I took all of the things that most people deal with and I recorded myself speaking to these things, almost kind of like if you're having a one-on-one session with me, right? So what I did was I did a lot of workshops, but only on the things that most humans would ever have to deal with, like dealing with a breakup, starting your healing journey, how to online date better. I did all of the things and I recorded them so that when they purchased them, they could come back to it 2 years later and get a refresher. 6 months later, get a refresher. Most people that have my workshops, they listen to them on average at least 5 times a piece. Because once you learn and you re-engage and you come back, you're going to see it with different eyes the second time, the third time. So it's a resource that they will always have, and it is still me, but it's not me, right? Like I could go to sleep while they're still learning. And so a lot of the testimonies are I've listened to it so many times that it has become muscle memory for me. Now I'm ready to go back outside, and when I go outside, I have the tools, not just for the healing journey, but how to relationship better, how to communicate better. So when I go in, I'm going in more informed about what I need versus what my trauma version, the little kid needs. Now I'm in control. I've gave the little kid the act. I got this now. And they go on and I always give my clients the ability to, once they start going through the system, you can contact me. I'm still your coach. I'm the little angel on your shoulder until you don't need me anymore. Guess what happens? They don't call. They just keep going because all the information they need is there. So it's very intuitive. I don't even know how I came up with it, but it's almost like a spider web, right? So like each course works independently, but it also links with all the others, no matter which one you take. I don't even know how I did it, but each course functions by itself, and it appends to any of the other courses in the cycle, no matter where you go. So like if you're learning about boundaries, the boundaries course, if you go in there, I'm going to tell you, hey, your boundaries aren't going to work until you work on your childhood traumas. So then you're going to go to the shadow work course. If you go to the shadow work course, it's going to talk to you about how you attach to people. So you're going to go to attachment style course. But if you go to attachment style course first, it's going to say your attachment styles come from your childhood. So then you go back to so they all interlink. So no matter where you come in at, it's going to bridge you to something else that's going to give you a bigger understanding. Once you go through the whole system, you have a resource that will never leave you, whether I'm present or not, because I'm one person. So most coaches will say, hey, one-on-one, do a one-on-one, call me for a one-on-one. But how many of those, if you're really about this life, how many of those emotionally can you do in a week before you have to recover? I realized that about myself. I'm an empath too. When I talk to clients, I have to go to my trauma so that you can trust me to work and fix with you. I'm identifying with you, but I got to tap into my own. Now we on the same level. I got to help build you up then get off the phone and recover to get myself back from what I had to tap into. How many of those could I do in a week? Maybe 3, 4, not 10, not 20. So I created a system where tomorrow I could take 1,000 and I won't feel it because the system's there 24/7. So hopefully that made sense. I want to help a lot of people, but my body can only handle but so much.
I love that you said that because what it reminds me of is application. Again, what he's speaking on is application. If you're not that first step of that growth, if you're not willing to grow and apply the knowledge like we were speaking on earlier, then everything's a mute point because again, that trauma is just going to take hold and be more. The question I have is, what is your why today? And if you're not applicable in those teachings of what you're learning and applying it where necessary daily, then tomorrow you might have a different why. And then when that girl, that guy comes up and they smell good and they got the new perfume or cologne on, you're going if you're not applicably, applying this knowledge, you're going to forget all about that and be like, well, she's fine or he's handsome. So, and then that's when that childhood trauma and those afflictions are going to rear their ugly head again. And then you're back calling Coach Jones, hey, met this girl and,
Yeah.
I forgot about the attachment. And it's like, well, she was fine. And then now you got to start, reset and start all over. And I love what you said that because about being an empath, because a lot of people, again, it takes courage to do coach's work. And the reason I say that is because whether you're an empath or not, whether you resonate with that or not, you're having to, I love what your coaching practice does because it's applicable and practical knowledge from what you've also went through. And so a lot of people don't understand that to speak with someone on and help them grow, you're having to tap into how you grew.
Mhm.
And, sometimes that can be hard because you're having to go back to a place that you already essentially graduated from.
Yep.
So I like to equate it. It's like, teaching kids how to do homework, right? Hey, dad, mom, can you help me with my algebra? Well, you done graduated high school. It's only 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
So now you're having to go. Now I don't even know what A squared means no more. And so it's the same thing when you're helping people heal with the trauma. It's saying, I went through this, I healed from this 15 years ago. But again, to be purposeful and focus on the assignment, you're allowing yourself to go back and to help reach the masses. And so I appreciate you for being courageous on that.
Yeah,
And
you know what happens, what I always try to tell people so that they'll understand how this works is if you remember the first hard breakup that you had and how much it hurt, even if it was 20 years ago, and I asked you, do you remember how it felt? Most people are going to say yes, right? It never left you. If you think about it too long, you might start feeling it again. Well, so if I'm helping somebody with a breakup issue, I have to connect with how I felt when I went through it. We still remember how it feels. I got to go through that all over again just to help you. And so people don't understand it until I give it to them like that. I'm like, you learn how to function in life around that pain. But if I ask you to remember it, it's still you've learned how to manage yourself around it. What I have to do as a coach is I have to remove the barriers so that I can feel it again, so that you feel like I get you. Because most people don't get coaching because they feel like the coach won't understand them. They don't know what I've been through. Yes, I do. I know. See, here's the thing that's common amongst all of us. We know what pain feels like. We know what emotions feel like. We know what hurt feels like. We know what the tears feel like coming down. So your story isn't too much different than how I felt. So I talk about the emotional part, and that's where I connect with you. But in order to do that, I got to go there too. And that's the part where a lot of coaches and therapists, they got to have a therapist too, because they got to keep digging into people's darkness and then come back and be a dad or be a husband or go to work the next day. It's not light. What I do with the healing stuff, if you talk to most relationship coaches, they would tell you, I'm never touching that because it goes too deep. But like I said, I feel like I've been called to do it. I've changed my whole platform to move more towards healing and then put the relationship on top like an icing. Cause I'm not going to talk to you about dating tips and you still working with abandonment stuff. We gotta start with the foundation. So that's what this work is really like. If somebody's really about this, they're digging into that stuff and they got to keep recovering every day, every week, every live stream they do. You're going to have to sit and breathe and get yourself grounded and back to normal and then to go do it again.
I love what you said, that is, again, being grounded and being on solid ground and being stable. Again, you have to build a stable foundation to even start dating. And I love that you said that to segue into the third part of the gumbo. So it looks like we got the sausage, andouille sausages, all nice and brown. Shrimp, the shrimp's about to go in, y'all, and then we get ready to eat with the rice. And so to segue into that third part of evolution, how oftentimes, how do you help someone? So like I said, we went through all three. The first one was the healing. The second one was the growth. So now you're actively applying, boom, like I'm getting it, coach, I got it. How do you help those stay on the course once they've starting to reach that evolution stage?
So here's the interesting thing that happens in the evolution stage. Those who have stayed the course, who have done the work, who have tried to implement it, maybe they messed up a few times and they had the resources to go back. The evolution part for somebody that's really coachable happens without me, right? Like I have people who are forever changed just from that growth part, that when they went outside again and again and again and they used the tools, they realized that they could do it on their own. And then I have one of my biggest testimonies. She told me like a month ago or two, she has a name that she uses online, and it's like a nickname that she had like her whole life. And she was like, that represents a version of me that I don't want to identify with anymore. I'm different now. I want to be known as my real first name. And she changed her name online to her government first name because she was like, I am not that other person anymore because I see the world differently now. I have another person that told me last week, she said, I got a library or workshop. She's only into her third one. And she was like, I'm already different. She was like, I see things differently. My energy is different and I don't allow certain energies around me anymore that I would have. That's the win. That when you get to that evolution of healing and going through the growth, you can't unsee it. Like you're going to see everything different. You're going to not align yourself with certain people anymore because you know what that used to feel like. And the evolution is the part where you realize that you have the power within you to move forward with or without me. And that's the win. That's the goal of what I do, is when you get to that evolution stage, you can't, all the things that you learn, now you know that you had childhood wounds, now you've identified it, now you've learned how to manage it, all of that stuff, you can't possibly be the same person on the other side of it. It's almost impossible once you see it, unless that trauma goes so deep that you might need to go to therapy. But most people just need shift. They need a little shift. They need to be pointed in the direction, that awareness and the tools and all of that stuff. You make that little shift and now your whole path is different. Now they're like, okay, I get it now. I can't go backwards. Like I've been doing this for a while. So it's like, there's people, I would say maybe 5 years later, and they're like, yeah, I was in a relationship because of you, but then I broke up because it wasn't right. But that part in the middle between me breaking up and being ready to date, I knew and I had tools how to heal between them. So I didn't stay in it so long that it made me bitter, or so that's also a win. The win doesn't mean you're going to get married. The win means that you have tools in your life that you don't sit in spaces you don't need to. So you spend more time in a peaceful state of mind than a trauma state of mind, whether you're single or not. Becoming a better version of you is the win.
Amazing, amazing. Again, I love what you said there. The win is yourself. Again, like I said earlier, it all ends and begins in you. And you get to decide. You owe it to yourself. I want to encourage the audience here today. You owe it to yourself to be the best version of yourself. And so I want everybody listening right now to look in the mirror Look, take a real close, go to the bathroom, wherever, if you got a mirror in your room, look in the mirror. And then I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to picture and dream about what would it look like to be your true, authentic, best version of yourself. What does that look like? What is it? What would you wear? What would you smell like? How would your hair be cut? How would your hair be done? How would you think? How many people could you help heal? How many people can you impact? I want you to really think about that as you're closing your eyes, standing in front of that mirror. And then I want you to open your eyes and realize that you have every power already inside you to achieve that greater, higher self. And like Coach Jones said at the beginning of the episode, it's not going to take 7 days. It's not going to take a month. It might take you years, but doing so each and every day is going to allow you to reach that height. Again, we're finite players in an infinite game. And as long as you're on the journey, enjoy the process. There is no prize. The prize is the pursuit. The prize is the pursuit of your own greatness. And so, with that being said, can you give the audience any last minute tips, motivations once they've reached the 3 stages and the gumbo is ready to eat and ready to be enjoyed? And then also tell the audience where they can find you.
I would say the last statement would be look at your life and be curious about the why. And not the why of what happened to you or what the person did to you, but the why about yourself and who you are. And that will lend yourself into who you need to become. But you first have to look at who you are. In that, I would say overall, most of us do not know who we are. And that's why we are out here kind of picking randomly. Most people have built a life around functioning in society, making our parents, feel good about us, making, being a good employee, being a good parent. But the who you are gets overshadowed by functioning in life. Maybe you're struggling to pay your bills and that becomes, the stressor for you and you build your life around dealing with that. But when you actually sit down and really look at what you want, who you are, then everything else kind of permeates from that. Who you pick. Now you're picking from a version of you that actually knows what you need. And that's the win, is for you to become self-aware. Then your boundaries make sense, your standards make sense, your deal breakers make sense. Who you choose to go out on a date with makes more sense because they're falling in love with the real you and not the pretend you. So I will land that part with that. How you can find me, the best way to find me is the website sitdownandheal.com. And that'll give you literally everything, the workshops and everything else that I have to offer. I have a free online community called the Sit Down and Heal Coaching Community, because I'm really adamant about people just sitting and stopping and detoxing and thinking. So that's why I call it Sit Down and Heal. I also have a live show on TikTok and you can get the link for that on the website too, every Tuesday at 8 p.m. called Sit Down and Heal with Coach Derrick. So there's a theme here. And you notice none of the language says anything about relationship and dating tactics. I want you to heal first. So I'm affectionately calling myself a healing journey coach now and a certified relationship coach. But I really want you guys to really think about where the things you need to work on. So that's how you find me, sitdownandheal.com. I'm a heavy TikToker, but I am on the other platforms as well. And then YouTube, I put the replays of all my shows on there too. So all of those links are all on the website. So that's all I got.
Awesome. And so, just to close, again, this has been a wonderful, impactful episode 20 of the Black Garden. I hope you guys brought your ice packs with you. I know there's some cuts and bruises on the arms, so make sure you put some Neosporin on that and get that taken care of before you go back to your daily lives. And so, again, I know there's multiple things discussed here today. Start applying it as soon as possible. As soon as you listen to it, start applying as soon as possible. And I have the utmost faith that everyone listening and viewing will continue to strive for the greatness again. The prize is the process. The prize is the pursuit of the greatness of your own authentic self. And so keep on keeping on, become the greatest version of yourself, decree the domain of your own mind. This has been Dark Law and Derrick Jones, Coach Derrick Jones out of the DMV for episode 20. Thank you for joining us inside Black Garden, and see you September 20th, 2024. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Create Dominion podcast with your host, Dark Law. Be sure to follow and like on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and go ahead and follow our Facebook and Instagram pages as well. We hope that you took something and resonated with it, that you can apply it to your daily life to become the best version of yourself and decree the dominion of your mind. Remember, decree and declare and take back your rightful throne and your rightful place into the best version of yourself. Thank you.